to my channel. I'm so excited that you're here, and I just wanted to update you on what's going on in our IVF journey. So we had our consult, and I have a lot of information to share with you. So basically, when you go for your consult, I highly suggest that you and your husband go to this appointment. There's a lot of information that's given. They go over the entire procedure. They go over the cost of the procedure. They go over the steps that you need to do prior to even going through the IVF procedure. The first thing we went over was the entire procedure. So they tell you what you need to do. So it consists of 2 months of testing prior to even starting injections. Then you would receive injections, and then depending on the situation, you get a trigger shot injection, and then they could either do something called a fresh transfer if it's appropriate, or a frozen transfer. So prior to anything, you have to get blood work done. So we went for our blood work actually today. That was fun. I had to get a bunch of blood work done because I also had my physical the week before. So what I did to take initiative, I went to my primary care doctor, and I had my physical, my yearly wellness, and then I made them aware that we're going to try to conceive, and just to let them be aware that what we're doing. That way my primary care doctor is on board with anything that my specialist recommends, just so that there's open communication between my primary doctor and then the specialist that I'm going to be seeing. Also, side note, I did a Daniel fast with my church a couple weeks ago. It's a biblical fast, if people don't know what that means, and it consists of no sugar, and then just like very healthy vegetables, anything rooted from the ground, like no caffeine or anything like that. So I think what I'm going to do, I just finished the fast a couple weeks ago, and I think what I'm going to do is implement that again. And honestly, I felt really good on that fast. It was hard at first, but I felt really good. And I did research, and there is research out there that sugar has a lot to do with polycystic ovaries. And from my last video that I put up, they did say that my ovaries were cystic, and I always get cysts on my ovaries. So I want to see if that is true, and that correlation is true, like sugar intake and like carb intake, if that has to do anything with my ovaries and the conditions that my ovaries are in. So that's just a side note of information. So first it's you go in for the consultation office visit, so they go over everything with you. Then there is a series of tests that needs to be performed. So your husband would need to do a semen analysis to see if his levels are good. Now, if they're good, that's great. That's all he has to do. So he has to do blood work, he has to do a semen analysis, and then that's it. So the rest of the testing falls on us, unfortunately. So we did our blood work today. So we'll get the results hopefully in the next couple days, that everything, hopefully, God willing, is good. After that test, so my next test is going to be, based upon my cycle. Everything goes off of your cycle when you're doing IVF. So that's going to be a little bit difficult because my cycle is extremely abnormal. So hopefully, my last cycle was February 2nd. So hopefully by March, the beginning of March, I can start the next step, which is I would have to call the facility the first day of my cycle, the first day of a full cycle, and then I would go and get an ultrasound on the second or third day of my cycle, and that's going to they're going to be able to determine the follicle count. Now, previously, when we were doing testing 2 years ago, we made it up to kind of this point, because the reason we stopped was due to finances. And I'll get into that too a little later. But it's extremely expensive, and at the time our insurance did not cover any of this. So we were kind of fearful because we didn't want to be put into a debt situation because of this. So we decided that it wasn't the best time for us to embark this journey. Now I have an insurance. God willing, it will cover most of the procedures that are required and some of the medications and the IVF. So we're very, very happy. We'll still have out-of-pocket expenses, but it's not going to be as much as going completely into this as a self-pay patient with no insurance coverage towards IVF. So after the ultrasound appointment, what we need to do is have a procedure called a Sano Hysteresis. So I also had this procedure done, and this was covered by my insurance at the time. So basically what that is you would go into the office. They do give you volume prior to the appointment to make you comfortable so you're not nervous. And then so you would have that, and then what they do is they dilate your cervix, and they do put a camera to look at the uterus because they need to see if there's any sort of fibroid, any sort of abnormalities in the uterus. So that's what they're looking for. So I did have that done. It was a little uncomfortable. It was a little painful, but it was okay. It was manageable. So I did everything up until that point. Then we stopped. Now, I have a list of the costs for the IVF, and everything is everything's different. Every office has different prices depending on your state, depending even just county to county. So this is just specific for my office that I'm going to, what they give, but it's a range. So it's a good range for you to see, is this something you can afford? Is this something you want to finance? Is this something that you can't finance and you want to see if you can get insurance that would cover this? And I'll go over tips on what to do for insurance in a moment. So the office visit is like if you have insurance and you're going for the office visit, typically that is covered from your insurance. Office visits are usually covered, but they state here that the cost for an office visit is $90. Then when you go in for that preliminary ultrasound on the first or second day of your cycle, they're saying that's about $200. And then the Sano Hysteresis is an estimate of $500. The physician consultation is about $125. The IVF coordinator consultation, so that's when you go in and you're getting your treatment coordinated with the nurse that is going to be basically in charge of your care with them, is about $100. The semen analysis is about $100, and then blood work is not done. The preliminary blood work is not done in the facility that I'm going to. They only do the monitoring blood work. So that's another variable. Now, the actual, with our facility that we are with, they estimate the total cost for the actual IVF procedure about $5,800 or so. And then once you are in this procedure and they do the transfer and everything, it would cost about $2,000 for the monitoring, because you have to go in every other day for monitoring, and that would include blood work, that would include ultrasounds, and any other adjustments that they would have to do during the course of your plan. And then some additional charges that you can be charged are for embryo freezing, which is about $460, and then embryo storage, which is about $270 every 6 months. So medications, the facility has nothing to do with your IVF medications. Your medications come from a pharmacy, so whether you're using a retail pharmacy such as like a CVS, a Rite Aid, a Walgreens, or if you're going to do a specialty pharmacy, which I think they do recommend a specialty pharmacy. What they told me, and when I was researching this, whether I was going to be able to afford this when I was doing it 2 years ago, I called a specialty pharmacy that my office recommended, and they gave me the list of the medications. Unfortunately, I do not have that list anymore, but I was going to be on a high hormone injection because of the situation with my follicle count. My follicle count was low, and they told me that the cost for one round of medications of what I would need would be about $4,000. So when we did the math, it was going to equal about $15,000 total. At that point, we were not ready to do that. And the reason we didn't go through with it was because we were fearful. What about if it doesn't work, and it's a failed trial? We were scared, and we said we're not prepared for that. We don't have another, that would be, we would be putting all our extra money that we had, we would be putting it into this, and there wouldn't be any room for, if it didn't work, we wouldn't have any additional funds, and basically it would be lost of $15,000. So we decided that we did not want to do that. So another thing they go over during the consult are the risk of IVF. What are the risks? The biggest risk they said was when they're doing the extraction of your eggs. There are risks with that procedure. You're put under anesthesia, so just the general anesthesia risk that you would incur in any medical procedure that involves anesthesia. And then what they do is it's guided by x-ray, but they extract it using like a needle, and they would go into the uterus, they would go through the uterine wall, and they would extract it from the ovary. Now there are risks with that. There is puncturing the uterus. I forgot exactly what they stated, but there's risk involved with that. They are very minimum. They said it's less than 1%. So, and of course it's guided by x-ray, so the risks are minimum with that. A question that my husband had regarding this is sperm count. What changes sperm count? And I thought other people might want to know this information as well. So the biggest thing that changes the sperm count is smoking. So if your partner is a smoker, encourage them to stop, because smoking drastically changes the sperm count. Also, side note, marijuana is the worst thing for sperm count. Another question that we have, so in case there is low sperm count, what they do is called a procedure. It's called ICSI. It's an abbreviation. It's ICSI. So once your testing is all done, and we're moving forward with the actual starting the process of the injections, and then the egg retrieval. So once you're getting to that part of your journey, you have a consultation with the doctor, and they are going to decide what's the best method for conception. Basically, they would either, how they explained it to us is that they would join the eggs and the sperm and let them fight it out like it would be naturally, how it would do naturally. Now, if there's low sperm count, or if there's any other issues that they're concerned about, they may want to do this procedure called ICSI, where they manually put the sperm, and it surrounds the eggs. So that's what they do for low sperm count, in case somebody has questions on that. And that is an additional fee, like I mentioned, and they said that would be, actually I didn't mention, it would be about $1,000 for additional for that. I'm not sure if insurance covers that or not. Another thing that they recommended that they do, and this he said is not covered by any insurance by any means, is genetic testing. Now, he said once we extract the eggs, and once we know how many embryos we're working, so he said that we're most likely going to need to do the genetic testing, and it's about $5,000 for this genetic testing, and it's just going to basically tell us which embryos are the best embryos. It's gonna waive out a lot of diseases. That way we know what's going on. But he did mention that given my history and given what's going on, we may just have 2 embryos. So this might be very, very important for us because we're going to want to choose the best embryo. He also did mention with the genetic testing, you can know the gender. I don't feel like that's something that I want to do. I don't know, I'm very uncomfortable with that. I kind of want that to be a surprise. So I feel like that's a flesh thing, and I feel like my flesh is like, I need to know the gender. But when I got the excitement out and I started to think about it, I actually don't want to know the gender. And I don't think my husband's on board with that either. He kind of got excited at first too, but when we started to think about it, I don't want to be God. Now, myth. I asked my doctor if there's any increase, because I've heard that if you do the genetic testing, you're putting the embryo at risk. And I asked, and he said absolutely there's no risk with the genetic testing of the embryos. Now, he said you don't have to, he did mention you don't have to do genetic testing. It's optional, because you can do the genetic testing once you're pregnant. They can do genetic testing. I'm assuming it's like amniocentesis. So that's normally a test that they would do for women that are over the age of 35 to rule out any genetic disorders such as Down syndrome. We don't have to do the genetic testing. We can do it once we're pregnant. That would be covered with the insurance. But I think we're going to go ahead and do it ahead of time. That way we know, going into this. And there's when you do the genetic testing, you have a higher success rate with implantation. Now, concerns. So, I did mention in my last video that I had a procedure for pelvic congestion syndrome. Now, when I went to my vascular surgeon, I asked him if there was any risk, if this was going to affect IVF in any way. And my vascular surgeon said no. So, I went ahead with the procedure. Now, my IVF doctor was a little bit concerned with the embolization, and he said that, they're going to monitor that because sometimes that can stop blood flow to the ovaries. Now, I haven't had any change in my flow. It's been pretty consistent ever since 2015. So if you guys could pray over that for me, because I'm kind of nervous. I'm a little bit nervous for the ultrasound appointment, because it's kind of going to be like, how many follicles I have and are my ovaries okay. I did ask him if I needed any sort of other imaging prior to that. He said no. So the only thing I would need would be the ultrasound to monitor the follicles, and then I need that Sano Hysteresis to be done. They did recommend for us to start taking supplements. I was taking like a multivitamin on and off, but I'm really going to get back into it. So what I did was I purchased, so my husband has been taking a multivitamin. We have to take vitamin D. I believe he said 2,000 IUs of vitamin D. And then he also recommended CoQ10. This is the brand that I got. And I really, really like this, actually. And my husband likes this. Now, the reason why he is recommending CoQ10 is because that helps women with their ovary, with their egg count. So you're not going to develop more, but you're going to sustain what you have. So he really encouraged me to do this, and then he also told my husband. So we got the gummies, and I'm just taking 2 daily with a meal. So I'm doing that. Also, I started prenatal. So I also got I got the same brand. I didn't even realize that. And I like this one. So this is the prenatal. It's Nature's Bounty. And I like this one. I'll actually show you, because it's not weird to me. So I like this one because it's like a capsule, because I've taken some before. So I like that one because it's easy to swallow because these pills are kind of big. So has the folate in it, which they recommend. It has the DEHA, and then it's got fish oil and a whole bunch of other good stuff. So I like this one. These are just the ones that I purchased. I'm going to bring this into my next appointment. I'm not too concerned about the prenatals right now because I'm not pregnant now. But once I am pregnant and, you know, and I need to like really monitor what's happening, I'll probably switch the brand. I just got this for the meantime to have the supplements. Okay, insurance. So prior to us doing this journey, I worked somewhere else. I worked for a private practice, and so they do not offer great insurance. Their insurance is very basic. My husband's insurance, he also works for a private contractor, so their insurance is also not good. So with my experience, when you work for a big corporation, any big corporation, they're going to offer better benefits than a private practice. So I was looking for employment in the summer, and I did wind up switching jobs. I started in December with this company, and now I have phenomenal benefits. The jobs that I know that the insurance covers IVF are police, fire, teachers, any big corporation. My husband used to work for Home Depot a few years ago before we even knew we had fertility problems, and his insurance was great with Home Depot, and they covered IVF. So that's what I did because I knew like my timeline was coming up. I was unhappy where I was, and I was really praying for a new job, and then I was able to get hired at this new place, and I just seen so many miracles just come because I took a leap of faith. So those are all the tips that I have. I thank you so much for watching this video. My next video, hopefully I can do the pelvic congestion syndrome and my experience with that. But as soon as I know exactly what my out-of-pocket expenses will be and how my insurance works, I will update you guys with that. And I also want to do maybe like what I'm going to eat, or like meal plans, because I do want to eat healthier. That way I can eliminate any sort of potential risk going forward with this. So I thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next update. Bye.